Well, all the bits have arrived now that I need, probably, so let's have a go putting this thing back together.
Let's start by giving everything a good flush.
So what I've just done there is I've put the hose with fresh water squirting into any outlets that were available on the car, so I've rinsed it back and forth in each direction, each combination of directions possible. I didn't see any muck coming out really, and the coolant that I took out was pretty clean as well, so that's all a good sign. Now ideally I might like to change the thermostat, which is another part buried further on in the car behind another hose. I didn't order one, I didn't think about that, and I just want to crack on for today, so we're going to skip by that at my peril no doubt, and try and actually put things back together. Now you might remember I had trouble with a couple of screws that were holding this on to the radiator, so I've just been in to find a replacement couple of screws. They're just sort of self-tappers, as long as they sort of go in they'll be fine. I'm just figuring out whether to put this onto the rad and then put the rad in as one assembly, or whether to put the rad in first and then add this to it. It was a little bit of a squeeze getting everything out in one go before. So I'm going to have a little bit of a play around and report back to you in due course.
The fan goes in easy. The rad was okay too. Now I align properly and fix together with those screws. Now it's back to the aircon. Here I'm taking off the top blanking plug.
Right, I can see that's a bung on there. I'll leave that in till I'm ready to reconnect.
And this is the blanking plug for the connection to the dryer. I fit the threaded spigots. These will accept the nuts, so I make sure they are well tightened. I need to be careful with this.
Right, that's quite good. I've got both radiators in place. I haven't hooked up the hoses to the cooling radiator yet, so I've still got a bit of wiggle in that, and I haven't put the supporting top brackets on either. I'm going to leave all that loose and finish orienting this cooling radiator for the aircon, and then move on to those other bits in a minute.
These are the two special seals I ordered. 12 quid a pair. The smaller black one goes on the dryer connection, and the larger red one goes onto the top of the radiator. Next, I put the rubber rad mounts in position.
Now, as you can see, I'm making progress. Everything's in place but loose, and I know where the last few nuts and bolts go. I'm just considering now whether I want to do up the connections to the air conditioning while the thing's to cock a little bit. Obviously it's easy to get the spanners in there, Or do I want to get things exactly where it's got to be, which is a little bit more forward like that, put that bracket on and so on, get things exactly buttoned down, so that those pipes are perhaps sitting more happily, you know, in a nice position for when I clamp them tightly so that it seals quite well. But then I've got quite limited access to the nuts with the spanners, so what I think I'm going to do is I should just do them up gently while they're here, bring everything into place, and then just do the last sort of turn and a half, you know, to actually bring those seals into play while I'm there. In fact, I might put off nipping those seals right up until I'm sure I've got the connections on the hose and that everything else is okay, because I've got a feeling those seals probably only want to be used once. They look like they're going to squash right down. So onwards.
I use mole grips to spring open the hose clamps.
Fucking hell. Well, it's not perfect, is it?
The washing up liquid eases sliding everything together.
Right, that's the bottom hose on. Managed to just spring that clip with these. There's a better tool you can get actually. This isn't really the thing, it's a bit of a faff, but luckily there's enough room to work there. So the difficult hose is back on.
I think this is just an overflow pipe for expansion. I bolt a rad bracket back on. And here goes the other rad bracket. Two small bolts hold the aircon rad in place. And before I forget, there's the fan connector.
I finally managed to get that difficult connector off, and now the entire front of the car is free. And I'm going to take this into the garden and carry a little modification out on it.
I'm using a piece of old leaf guard from the gutters. It needs a bit of fettling. Fold it to suit and work it into shape. Finally, I can fix it in place.
Right, well the way I'd intended to attach that grill was I thought I'd mix up a bit of araldite if I've got any, and just sort of dob it into place and you know, hold it there while it's set, and then just, you know, have a little few blobs of that. But I was able to find screw fixing points just about that don't obviously stick out onto the outside of the vehicle. Don't want that when you're there with your chamois and your sponge, do you? Getting caught up in screw ends. So that's gone in really well. It looks completely sort of factory, a little bit racy if anything, so that's good, you know, but we'll see how we get on with it. Obviously it's functionality that's foremost on my mind. I want it to not let stones through to smash all the new radiators up. So I think really now I'm ready to get back over to the car and do the sort of final part of the assembly. I just remembered, actually, that was the main reason why I was interested in taking the grill off at all. There was this issue of whether I could fit the radiators with this in place, and probably I could have, but that was the reason behind that. There's no other way to do that, so that's been worth it for that alone.
I'm giving the aircon seals their final tighten. As tight as I can, but with not too big a spanner. I don't want to bust anything.
Now there was just one thing about putting the hoses back on that I wasn't totally happy with. I used the same clips and the clips were fine, but when I put them back on I oriented the clips differently as to how they were from factory. Obviously at the factory they've worked from underneath the car, and the sort of bits of the clip that you can get hold of underneath there wasn't much use to me, so when I came to do it back up I put the bits of the clip in a different place. The upshot of that is that the clips have a kind of profile. They're not a solid band of metal, they've got kind of like two sides to them and some bits in the middle, and the bit that does all the clamping is different again, and that obviously leaves an impression on the hoses over time. Now because I've done those clips in a different orientation, I'm slightly concerned that the hoses will be formed in a certain way from years of pressure as they were, and it might be that they don't want to seal quite perfectly straight away with the clips in the new places. Now in my day we used to have Jubilee clips which were the same all round, and you could put it where you wanted, and you used to do the thing up nice and tight with a little screw. These are different. There's no sort of adjustment, they're just either clamped or unclamped. So all I'm going to have to do is just fill up the system and try it and see how I get on.
You can just make them out here and here. Just do that difficult connector.
Well, after a couple of days of trying and plenty of release oil, I finally managed to get this bit, this little cross brace thing off of the slam panel. It connects the slam panel into down further under, and that was the only thing really that made my life a misery doing this job. I couldn't undo it at the time at the top two nuts, which is where it should have been undone. I had to do it at the bottom two nuts, and that meant bending everything around, and it's been in the way ever since. Really hate this thing, but it's off now, which means at least I can jiggle it back together that bit more easily.
There it goes. I hope that makes sense.
That's better. The eagle-eyed amongst you might have spotted that a lesser important piece of plastic broke off at some point during my struggle to release the slam panel when I was dismantling things, but bit of the old favourite, sorted it out.
Let's get the last of it back together. These are a bit awkward up underneath. I'm actually watching the phone camera to see what I'm doing.
And that's it, the last bolt. Well, that's everything done now, except one thing, of course, and that's to fill up the coolant. Now I'm going to do that in a bit, and then I shall have a little journey and make sure that everything's alright. Of course, when you fill up the coolant, you'll need to get the engine running and let it all gurgle through, and it'll be a bit of a faff. But hopefully, fingers crossed, everything should now work. But of course, I will have to hop along to the local quick fit down the end there and get her gassed up again. And that's after, of course, they do a suitable pressure or vacuum test to make sure that there aren't now any leaks in the system. But I think that'll do for now. See you next time. There was just one other thing, of course, reconnecting up my old friend the horn.